Hello, and welcome to the Smart Inclusion Podcast, where we connect the dots between investing in people, investing capital, and preserving the planet. Each episode brings you powerful stories from thought leaders like women, indigenous people, and unsung heroes who are driving the global energy transition forward. This podcast ties together the complex threads of sustainability, showing how the public can engage with new opportunities in energy transition and invest in their communities. Whether you're interested in the future of energy, climate change, sustainable investing, or understanding why these changes matter to you, Smart Inclusion delivers insightful conversations that break down what's happening, what's on the horizon, and how you can be part of this transformational movement. I'm your host, Todd Q. Adams. Welcome to the Smart Inclusion Podcast, where we connect the dots on investing in people, investing capital, and protecting our environment. That is the essence of equity economics. I'm your host, Todd Q. Adams. We've got something, a really good one today. Today, this is our season finale. My friend, Charletta Lewis, and she is the general partner of Mighty Oaks Capital Partners, coming from Silicon Valley, and now in Houston, a native Houstonian.
Yes.
And you're going to tell that story too as to why you are back. However, I want to let it be known that, we've listened to many founders, and we've listened to founders who have also focused on why community benefits and why conscious capitalism and social entrepreneurship are integral to climate tech solutions. Now we want to hear from the investor lens. So they're going to talk about how they raise money and what their challenge is. And we want to get your lens on why this matters to you and why you're investing. Sounds good to you?
It does indeed.
Okay, good. So here's what we're going to do. I want to just, first of all, since you're new to Houston, well, at least you left Houston, you're returning, I should say. Tell us just who just tell your story. And I think, the thing is, I want you to tell your story from high school. And I mean, literally from there and your unconventional route to BC.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And my journey, as you said, is very unconventional because I started wanting to be a police officer. Graduated from high school, left Texas, went to California, became a police officer at 18. Then after that career, I just transitioned into becoming a franchisee of an athlete's foot store. It was the first athlete's foot store in the Houston area. And from there, I had an opportunity to work at DOD and DOS, which is really where I started developing an interest in deep diving into the startup ecosystem.
So DOD, tell everybody, DOD and
DOD is the Department of Defense. So
Okay.
I had an opportunity to work embedded with the military overseas. That allowed me to travel to over 25 countries. So while I was there and doing that, I went to different ecosystems around the world. And I wanted to learn more about how companies got started, how investors invested in those companies. And that's what led me to Silicon Valley. I was there for about 10 years. And I've taken that knowledge that I've learned in Silicon Valley, came to Houston because I understand that the market itself is pretty fragmented, from learning how to develop a product on your college campus or in your garage, which is where a lot of startups get founded, and how to take that product to market. So I actually have relationships with retailers to put products into retail once they are ready. And that brings me up to today.
Okay, that is unconventional. As we know, most folks, the Harvard Business School, kind of the route through, investment banking or whatever the case may be, and that's not true. However, you are bringing this an array of experiences that help founders and that help empower founders and also support founders. So now you're bringing this, you talk about being fragmented, and you're talking about, I'm hearing support needs for founders as well. Talk about, first of all, kind of, just the 101, who you fund, the stage, check sizes, all of that before we get into some of the other dynamics?
Sure. So, first of all, Mighty Oaks Capital Partners exist because we recognize that founders often need much more than just a check. So, we are the roll up your sleeves partner that gets into the trenches with the founders and provide them with resources that usually center around marketing, their tech stacks, or business development. Because we believe that if you increase your revenue, your equity isn't going to cost you that. It isn't going to cost you so much, as opposed to if you raise too early, then that equity becomes very expensive. So we decided to align with different resources to provide to founders in addition to writing checks.
And those check sizes?
So right now we're working with a founder to get $1 million. And it really just depends on the founder. So anyway, we'll go anywhere from 250 to about 10 million. So we work with companies from the pre-seed stage to Series A.
Okay. And and also, you mentioned the differentiators of why, but tell us why. Why are you doing this? And you're coming from Silicon Valley. That is really antithetical to a lot of the culture. And I know it's a little stereotypical, but Silicon Valley, but it could be a little more cutthroat. But why this social, I'll call it this, leading with purpose and helping people focus?
So when I started this, I didn't realize that less than 1% of capital goes to any founder of color. And I wanted to understand that. So finally, a VC gave me some insight into how they actually invest into companies. And it's because they raise through LP limited partners, which in the industry is called LPs. Mm-hmm. And those LPs give them a mandate for how they can invest those dollars. So regardless of if your company is at post-revenue or it's at a fundable stage, if it doesn't meet the mandate or the thesis of the fund, there's zero chance that VC will invest into your company.
Got it.
So we've decided to take a different approach. We invest through special purpose vehicles. And in the industry, it's called SPVs. And we invest in SPVs because we can be industry agnostic, which means we can look at any deals that we feel are fundable or that we can offer some value to. So I'm a board member of a lot of different companies, and there's different ways in which I help them, either through strategic partnerships or writing a check, or if I can't offer that value, then there's usually someone in my network that I can share with them that can help with their venture.
And oftentimes founders will come, and there can be varying degrees of fostering education. So everybody's not venture backable, or they, as you mentioned, they may need to generate some revenue before they exchange any raise an equity round or whatever. Talk about what differentiates what you do to help either acquire funding across the capital stack, to say you're not ready, and also to give them the support to be ready and to kind of look at it and understand as well.
Great question. So we look at, one, what does investors expect back, right? And because we invest through SPVs, we have a number of investors that syndicates the deals. So we act as fiduciaries for people's hard-earned money. And so we want to understand what the company is doing, what their vision is for scaling. And if the return isn't going to be in the hundreds of millions, usually that's an indicator that it's not scalable for a venture-backed company. Mm-hmm. It doesn't always mean that, but for some of the benchmarks, that's what we look at. And then there are other ventures that we call passion projects. It's something that somebody has had on their heart for a long time, and they just continue having the nudge to do something with it, but it may not be something that will scale to, hundreds of millions of dollars. So we will treat that a bit differently, and depending on what the vision is, we'll decide if this is something that we can offer value for.
Great. So thank you for sharing that. Let's go into a real example.
Okay.
A company in your portfolio kind of tell a story of funding them, a company that is doing good in the community, that you look at and say, this is a viable model for those types of returns, and I see this making a difference and making money?
Yeah. So Mula Wireless is one of those companies. The founder of Mula Wireless was he went to college and studied in computer science, and from there went on to form his own company. And now he's aligned with AT&T, where he has a mobile device that provides opportunities for startup companies to have an in-app placement on that device. And from there, there's just a plethora of opportunities where we're funding him now with an initial $1 million, but he will raise in total about $10 million.
Okay, so the model is obviously across devices, very scalable.
Very.
And also talk to the value of the retailers or the kind of the partners as well. In other words, what do they get out of it, like an AT&T and some of the others?
Yeah, so he actually has a partnership with Walmart. And his devices are a bit different because when you get the device, you also get internet. And so many of those devices, you have to buy your internet separately, from the device. This one comes with it. What's unique about it is that anytime you use the device, whether it be to surf the internet or to do homework, whatever you're using the device for, you accumulate rewards, points. Those points can be converted into real-world currency, and you can spend it just like you would a gift card at Starbucks or Walmart or, in any of those places. So the businesses benefit, the users benefit, and so does the company.
Oh, so it fosters customer loyalty,
yes,
revenue, sales for those respective organizations, as also kind of some brand, some brand recognition and all of those things associated with that.
It checks all the boxes.
It checks all the boxes, and so that's why we talk about when we say making a difference, making money, and making a difference is really important. And, and using those examples. So talk to me as well about any other ideal partnerships. What is an ideal? You mentioned the limited partners. Obviously, they have to be on board and buy into what you buy into at Mighty Oaks.
Well, we want them to, we will package the deal, which means we meet with the founders, we vet it, we do the due diligence for those deals, and we are creating a community of educating particularly the underserved community who don't know that you can invest into startups. And usually if you learn about the startup and it's already in the market, it's IPO, you've kind of missed a mark.
Okay, I need you to repeat that. I need you to repeat that again, because investing underserved communities, and talk is specific about when you're talking about that and why that's important, particularly from a wealth creation opportunities, helping founders, and also the individual investor, because this is important.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know that we can invest into these companies, and large in part, that's how a lot of the wealth is created. Because these companies are formed, you sell your company to Google for $1 billion, and the wealth that generates from generation to generation is almost immeasurable, right? But underserved communities don't know that oftentimes. And so I feel like my mission is to educate more people of the opportunities to invest into these companies, and particularly in founders that look like them.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So looking ahead, because saying that is one thing. So what are some ways to actually encourage, and to support that? So I mean like institutional partnerships, or I mean kind of getting even economies of scale with getting underserved people to participate in this.
Absolutely.
Kind of give us some insights on that as well.
Yeah, so we're having conversations with a lot of the Houston area universities, colleges, high schools, and companies that's connected to those resources, because we want to engage with teachers, with parents, with community members, and bring this more local to the areas that can impact a founder. So, for example, if they live in this area, we want to put their products into retail locations that is hyper local to their area, and it just fosters some of that community pride of, I know somebody whose product is in a local retail store.
Yes. Now, so what you're really talking about is driving the local economy, building community trust. You're talking about community pride, obviously helping founders, grow and scale their respective businesses, and having broader institutional partnerships as well that lend themselves to community benefits beyond just driving, getting a return and all of that. Now, that is something that is not normal. Then that's not the normal. That's not the, and it's also probably a lot more work.
It is, which is why it's important to align with the right partners, right? And particularly institutions that are educating, but that's what they're doing, right? Then what's next? And that's always my question. What happens after that? Once you incubate them, or you help them to understand the mechanics of building a business, what's next? And so I kind of intercede in there for that what's next, for that go-to-market, putting them, making their products available to the market.
And that's a very, very important point. Understanding the mechanics of business, even things like friends and family round, which assumes that you have friends and family that can even fund you, or there is maybe a legacy of business ownership within your family or within your sphere of influence. I'm hearing you say that you provide a broader support for someone where talent may be distributed, they may have a viable solution, but there is also a level of support that is needed, and it's worth to make. So you're investing in those folks in that way, because there's the belief that they will yield returns if they have the wraparound services to support them.
Absolutely. And so it's really about bringing a community of resources together, so that they don't have to go out and figure out what's next after they go through a 3-month program to know that, okay, I've come out with understanding what my product is and how I need to sell it, what ROI I should have, what my break even is, and all of those things, when they need to improve their MVP. Their MVP is a viable product, it's a minimal viable product that you can put into the market that will explain what you're doing. Because a lot of people have these ideas, but putting those ideas onto paper and then getting other people to support that is equally important. Right?
Yeah, this is very, very important, because even in the climate tech space, you have a lot of Black and brown founders that need that kind of help. This is a very capital intensive space. It's a space where there's not a lot. It assumes that you have relationships with major scientific research entities to validate and proof of concept and all of those things. And if you're not tied into those networks, then it's your ingenuity or your solution really probably will fall flat. And that's, I want you to just kind of, I saw you kind of give me some,
So my question is, do you have any rich uncles that, you can go to and borrow $1 million or, $5 million?
Well, let me explain to you. So, Charletta, well, first of all, no.
Well, that's the answer that most of us will have, right?
Exactly.
So we have to be a bit more creative in how we're able to get this capital. And if we bring more people and educate more people about how they can get involved, I believe that many of them will. It's just a matter of knowing that it's possible.
And well, part of that is seeing people like, you have to see people like you, because you don't see many Black women general partners of a venture capital firm, especially one that has a presence in Silicon Valley. So I want you to, because the reality too is that it's one thing to have access, and it's also on the human side, you also to the cold shoulder, to be alienated or to be alone. Talk through that as well, and because that is a reality, and just talk about how do you, just some ways that you actually deal with that.
Yeah, so the startup journey in and of itself is a lonely journey, because most times you're by yourself, or you might have one other person that you're bouncing ideas off of, and there's a lot of talk around mental health, because you get into your bubble and your bubble is spent really trying to, get your idea out there and get it into a space that, people will start believing in you, and you don't know what to do first. Should I create this product? Should I get customers, or should I get VC dollars? And people often think that they should get VC dollars first, when if you position your company in a way that shows a VC that your customers will pay for it, and you've identified who your customers are, you have a much better chance of getting those venture dollars. And again, I'll just say partnerships.
And that goes back to your earlier point about how you help. That may be support to acquire customers, and then say, this is what you need to do, as opposed to saying, just go back and get customers and come back.
Yeah, no. And it's mainly because I understand the journey, just having been there, and just from what I've seen, oftentimes I will spend probably a lot more time than the average VC, because everybody's company is their baby, and everybody believes their baby is beautiful. And I know how difficult that road is. And I don't ever want someone to walk away from a conversation with me feeling like, why bother?
So in in 1 minute, share with me, because you're new to Houston, at least in this VC arena. You're returning to Houston, I should say. Just talk to the ecosystem and tell them this in 1 minute. Who you want to connect with? Who are you building partnerships? Who do you want to connect to?
So I want to connect with parents. I want to connect with students who are majoring in finance, in business, in marketing, and create hackathons where we have collaborative communities of utilizing your own skill sets to help a company grow legs, get that company out into the market, and share equity within that company. Within our own company, the resources and people that we have working with us, we share our equity from the startup companies that we actually invest in. And so we want more of our Black and brown communities having equity in these companies, because just a little amount of equity. Just imagine if you invested in Facebook when they first came out, right? Just a small amount of equity can be life-changing. And that's what I'd like to do.
Yeah. And so, as I listen to you, first of all, it's very moving. And I say it's moving because throughout this season, and my guests, all in some ways have driven the fight of community benefits, the challenge of fundraising, finding ways to lead with the social, even when they have technological solutions, yet they still are economically and technically viable. And doing that, and also they happen to be founders as well, who are many of them folks of color. And so I really think that, investing in all people, investing capital, and investing and protecting our environment, that is truly the essence of equity economics. And that's why I invited you. I wanted you to actually inspire a lot of climate tech founders who are really frustrated. I meet them personally. And so I know you invest across all industry sectors, and really speaking to them in that space. And hopefully there's somebody who is actually moved, inspired, encouraged by what they've heard from Charletta Lewis, Mighty Oaks Capital Partners, and just differentiating the approach and providing support to founders. What you're doing is much needed, and it's really spiritual. And I mean that. It's spiritual because at the end of the day, finding a way to do the right thing and earn a living and add value to your LPs, that's not an easy feat. You say,
No, it's not. But you stay in it, and you keep trying, and you keep going. And before you know it, people like you show up. It's people that will show up, and you have a conversation, and they may work on something different, but at the end of the day, it's really with the same common goal in mind. And you're right in terms of being spiritual, because it's you want to ask the question, like, where have you been all this time?
Exactly.
But very happy that, we finally have crossed paths, because I believe that people who are working on solving this problem are being magnetized to each other, and we'll find each other somehow, some way.
And that is part of a building community. And you know what? We're at a close. But I want to thank you, Charletta. I want to thank you, Charletta Lewis, for being my guest. Season finale. The closer. You are the closer, and you are the appropriate closer for today. And the thing is, you're invited back for next season, because this is way too short.
Thank
and
you.
there are far too many people that need to be helped, and too much work to be done, and too many social and economic problems that we need to address. So I want to thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm all in.
Thank you. And I want to, yep. And I want to, this is equity economics right here. That's enough said. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank you for viewing, listening, whatever platform that you're on. And I really appreciate your comments, your feedback. Please like, share, and give us some insights, and give us some constructive criticism on that which we can add for season 2. Thank you, and I look forward to building community and fighting the fight. Thank you.